Yeah, I think winning kind of makes everybody happy, right? So, when whatever it was a month ago, when we had a bad week, the sky was falling. We've had a good week, right? So we just try to keep it in perspective.
All right, that was Anthony Grant, head coach of the Dayton Flyers, following their 77-62 win last night over top 25 St. Louis. Yes, a huge win for the Flyers over St. Louis, over the Billikens. This just a week and some change after getting blown out by the Billikens, getting beat by 30. So a nice rebound game for Dayton, but it's not just a rebound game against St. Louis. This could be a rebound stretch for the Flyers. They've now won 4 straight. They have 3 games remaining. The at-large opportunities, well, they no longer exist. This is about the Flyers getting prepared to do something that they haven't done in decades, and that's have to win the A10 tournament to get to the NCAA tournament. We welcome you in. It's the Justin Kinner Show right here on 1410 ESPN Radio and live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page and YouTube channel. Happy Wednesday. Okay. So you heard the clip from Anthony Grant there at the start. Talked about, last week or a few weeks ago that the sky was falling. They had lost 3 straight. In fact, they had lost 4 straight. They had actually lost 5 of 6. It wasn't just a week. I mean, Anthony Grant tried to make it sound like it was just we had, one bad week. This is probably one of the weirdest seasons I can recall for Dayton Flyers basketball. And I do think it has a lot to do with the patience kind of weighing thin amongst the Flyer fan base. I think that plays a huge role in this. But you look at Dayton right now, they have 19 wins. 19 wins. They are 19-9 overall. 10-5 in A10 play. They're 3 games back of St. Louis, who they just beat last night. And I think right now, mathematically, still in it to be able to win the conference. I just don't think that's going to happen. But this team has an opportunity to be the hottest team in the conference heading in to the A10 tournament. Finishing in the top 4 is important. You want to get that, of course, that bye early in the A10 tournament. That's obviously something that this team is heavily focused on at this point. But here's the point that I think Anthony Grant and the university as a whole is missing, because they seem confused. Why are Flyers fans, even when they win, still frustrated? And I think I have that answer. It's because when you beat St. Louis like you did last night, that almost irritates me more than had you would have lost to St. Louis. Because had you lost to St. Louis for the second time, that's a top 25 team. They're one of the best stories in college basketball this year. You lose to St. Louis for the second time, everyone can look around and say, okay, Anthony Grant has had some very talented teams in years past. This just isn't that good of a team. But then you go and you rout St. Louis, a top 25 team, on your home floor, and all you've done is just made people realize, oh, you are a good team. But you may not have anything to show for it. And that has been the pattern throughout the Anthony Grant era. Very talented teams, not a whole lot to show for it. And that's the problem with Dayton Flyers basketball. Last night, a fantastic win, a huge win. But it's also just a reminder, wait, how do you do that? How do you beat St. Louis the way you did and lose to LaSalle and St. Joe's? How do you rout Florida State? How do you rout Georgetown? You beat Georgetown. You beat Marquette. You beat up on Big East teams. You blow out an ACC team in Florida State. You pummel a top 25 team in St. Louis. But you're going to be left out of the NCAA tournament because you can't beat Liberty, because you can't beat LaSalle, because you can't beat St. Joe's. And that's always been the issue. We've never doubted, and I've never doubted the talent that Anthony Grant brings to the 937. I've never doubted that. Because someone reached out to me and said, oh, Kenner, I bet you don't have anything positive to say about the win last night. And this may be taken as, oh, Kenner's trying to spin this into a negative. I'm not spinning anything into a negative. The reality is last night's win, as great as it was, it's also a reminder of, oh, yeah, you do have that in you. That is who you are. But LaSalle is also who you are. Dayton has always done enough in November, December to be in the at-large conversation. They did enough this year to be in the at-large conversation. And what I mean is they did enough in November, December, even with the loss to Liberty, heading in, because they were going to have plenty or at least a decent amount of quad 1 and 2 opportunities to be able to build themselves back up. But you neutralize those opportunities by losing to LaSalle and losing to St. Joe's. And a lot of you keep saying, well, injuries this, injuries that. Guys, I'm here to tell you, I am so tired of the excuse making by Dayton Flyers fans all the time. It's always injuries. It's always COVID. It's always something. We didn't accomplish our goal because fill in the blank. Every team deals with injuries. Every team deals with some kind of roadblock, and how do you overcome it? Miami, Ohio is one of the best. I'm sorry, they don't like to be called Miami of Ohio. The Miami Redhawks are the best story in college basketball. They lost a starter earlier in the year. They kind of ran into, they were going through a stretch where they weren't playing their best basketball, which is why they needed overtime to beat Buffalo. But then you ride the ship and you get it going again. You find ways to win. Do I expect Dayton to be 27, 28-0 like Miami? No, I do not. They actually play good teams. However, it's not the good teams that are biting Dayton in the ass. It's the bad teams. And, it is what it is. That was a good win last night, though. Okay, you think I'm going to be all negative? I'm not. I'm not here to be negative. I'm here to tell you that last night's win was so big that it's also irritating because the team's always had it in them. Anthony Grant, and you guys have heard me say this before, Anthony Grant does a good job. I mean, and I always think it's easy to get 19 to 22-year-olds motivated to go up against really good teams. We're playing Georgetown tonight. Make sure you play hard. We're playing Marquette tonight. Make sure you play hard. We're playing Florida State tonight. Make sure you play hard. BYU, top 10 team in the country. Make sure you play hard. Got it, coach. We don't need you to tell us that. We're going to play hard because we're motivated to play these teams. Where a coach earns his money is, how do you get them motivated to play the LaSalles? How do you get them motivated to beat the Liberties to extend your, longest home game win streak in the country? How do you do all those things? That's where coaches earn their money. And because of his inability to get the team to buy in on those nights is why this team is constantly looking around, pointing the finger, pointing at injuries, pointing at COVID still, even after all these years, as to why this team doesn't consistently accomplish their goals. The only way to prevent 9 years of Anthony Grant leading to only one or two technically NCAA tournaments is by winning the A-10 tournament right now, which is why, to the positive side of this, last night, what I liked about last night too, at the end of the day, was the fact that Dayton shot the ball well from three, but they didn't dominate from three, which means that's the way they shot the three ball, they shot 40% from behind the 3-point line. They buried 8. They were 8 of 20. Okay. And it's not like the last time these two teams played. We had Paul Frischner on yesterday, and he alluded to the fact that, hey, Dayton was at St. Louis. They hit 16 threes. That's an anomaly. You're not going to do that. Had Dayton last night won by burying 16 or 15 threes, I would have said, well, that's great that they got hot from three, but that's not who Dayton is. But Dayton could live in that 6 to 8 3-point range and be consistent defensively, attack the glass. They did get out rebounded last night, 35-30, but it was a relatively, close rebounding battle as far as that's concerned. But here's where Dayton really dominated last night. They passed the ball well. 18 assists last night. All right. They knocked down 24 of 51 shots. They shot 47% as a team. They assisted on all but 6 made baskets last night. They assisted on all but 8 baskets last night. When Dayton moves the basketball, when they play defense, when they hit the three, they're the toughest team in the A-10, in my opinion. St. Louis is the best, no doubt about it, and they just beat the best team on their home floor last night. They dominated the Billikens last night at UD Arena. But that's why I feel good about that win last night for the Flyers, because it's not like, 15 threes last night. Okay, they buried 15 threes. Well, you can't, it's like, they're going to win the next game because they're going to hit 15. You can't promise you're going to hit 15 threes in the next game. And we saw just how different this Billikens team looks when they're not burying the three. And we saw that. 16 threes they made against the Flyers the last time these two teams played. Last night, St. Louis, 5. They made 11 less three-pointers than they did the last time these two teams played, and they got blown out. 77-62 the final. They lose by 15. They were almost down 30 themselves at multiple times throughout the game, especially in that first half. To St. Louis's credit, they played dead even with Dayton in the second half. I mean, they outscored Dayton in the second half, 34-33. But Dayton dominated so much in the first half, they were able to hold off for the win. There was a couple stretches where I'm like, oh, man, St. Louis, they cut it to 12. They cut it to 10. If this gets to within single digits, typical Anthony Grant style basketball, they're going to kind of clinch a little bit. They're going to kind of, you know what I mean? They're going to play tight, and they're going to let them back in this. To Anthony Grant and the Flyers' credit last night, they did not let St. Louis back in it. They did not let St. Louis back in it, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. Again, the final last night, 77-62. Dayton Flyers over the Billikens. They've now won 4 straight. Dayton, 3 games remaining on the season. They're 19-10. They're third in the A10. They're looking up at VCU and St. Louis. With last night's win, that means they split with first place St. Louis. VCU, who also punched Dayton in the mouth a few weeks ago, they'll have round 2 with VCU and the Rams coming up on March 6th. That's a few weeks away. 3 games away, though, or 2 games away, technically. They'll be at George Washington coming up 2 nights from now, and then they'll be at Richmond on the 3rd, and then they'll close out the regular season on the 6th against VCU. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM, 937-518-1410. I'm not being negative about the Flyers. That was a hell of a win last night. And the reason I liked last night's win is, as I stated, to summarize here, they played Dayton Flyers basketball. They knocked down 8 threes. They shot the ball well, but they moved the ball well. They made 24 baskets last night, assisting on 18 of those. They did get out-rebounded, but they weren't dominated on the glass, so they were pretty even with a bigger team. Dayton, they're not as big as St. Louis, but they were right there. But they moved the ball well. They played good defense, took defense, turned it to offense, knocked the shots from 3 down well. Great game last night. They've won 4 straight. Can you imagine the confidence of a team like Dayton heading into the A10 tournament, trying to do something they haven't done in decades, which is win the A10 championship, the A10 tournament? If you think about it. Like, George Mason was also in the top 3 of the A10 for the majority of this conference season. So for Dayton, amongst this win streak, to blow out George Mason, to blow out St. Louis, and you have, of course, a couple, Richmond. You have a couple games coming up that you could beat up on, George Washington and Richmond. And imagine you beat up on those 2 teams and then close out the season with a 7-game win streak with blowout wins over George Mason, St. Louis, and a potential win against VCU. There's not a team in the A10 outside of LaSalle probably that Dayton looks at and says, oh man, we got to worry about that team right there. It's a good stretch of basketball to be on. They've kind of shook off the cobwebs. Okay, they're not going to be in that large team. They kind of put that mess behind them. Now they know they want to be a tournament team, and the only way to do that is to win the conference tournament. Well, guess what? That's what they're focused on now, and they're playing really good basketball. They've won 5 of their last 6. They've won 4 straight, and they'll have a couple nights before we see them again as they take on George Washington on the road. That game will be on ESPN2 on Friday night. Nonetheless. All right, more of the Justin Kinner Show when we come back right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM.
Questions on whether we're all in or not. I've been doing this a long time. I've never not been all in. We are all in. We are trying to get the best team possible with the resources we have. Last year we went all in. We signed over $400 million worth of contracts going all in. That's what we do. We want to be all in. We're trying to put the best roster together every year, and this year is no different.
Man, oh, man, oh, man. That was, of course, Duke Tobin, the general manager, the GM for your Cincinnati Bengals, of course. At the Combine last night, his definition of what all in is kind of interesting. And I guess the question I have for you, Bengals fans, is we welcome you back to the Justin Kinner Show again. That was Duke Tobin. Do you believe Duke Tobin when he says that they go all in? Did they go all in last year? Duke Tobin believes that because they put all of that money into Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, that was the definition of going all in. That's the thing. Like, you can't, if your vehicle needs new tires, new windshield wipers, needs a new fuel pump, and you go put new windshield wipers on and only 2 new tires on the front, but you don't address the fuel pump and you don't put 2 new tires on the back, and then you go home to your wife when she asks you, hey, did you take care of the vehicle? Is our vehicle good? Yes, I went all in on getting that vehicle fixed. Oh, so you got the windshield wipers, the fuel pump, and all the new tires taken care of? Well, no. But, man, I bought 2 new expensive tires for the front. I mean, the windshield wipers, those are some – I bought the Rain X kind. I bought the most expensive kind you can get, my gal. Come on. That's not going all in. Congrats. You got the deals done with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I can't believe this. They're letting this buffoon talk again. I told you guys, I can't stand your general manager in Duke Tobin. I think he's a moron. I really do. I don't care how immature of it is. I don't care how immature that is of me to say. I think he is a moron. I think every time he talks, he embarrasses the Cincinnati Bengals. Every time he talks, he embarrasses you as Bengals fans. I think Duke Tobin is a straight-up moron. I don't care how childish that makes me look. Everyone thinks I'm a moron too. So there you go. But the bottom line is, this guy just says the most ridiculous, I've always been all in. I mean, last year we went all in. You can't say stupid blank like that after you missed the playoffs for the third straight year, after you've had the worst defense in the NFL for 2 straight years, and not just the worst, historically bad. That doesn't make any sense. You can't put brand new rims on a vehicle that doesn't run. You can't put fancy, expensive rims on a vehicle that doesn't run. And that's all you did. Oh, we gave a lot of money to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. That's fan-freaking-tastic. Where'd you go? Where'd you end up? Where you ended up is in the top 10 of the draft. Where you ended up is out of the playoffs for the third straight damn season. Where you ended up is people who hate on the Bengals like me and Bengals fans alike all agreeing you're a buffoon. I mean, I can't believe that guy actually sat there with a straight face and looked at the media. Like, I think Lance McAllister said it best yesterday on Twitter or on X. Lance McAllister said, that's something that you say when you have no fear of losing your job. And that's exactly right. Duke Tobin feels the pressure from you, the Bengals fans, but he doesn't care about you, the Bengals fans. All he cares about is the one opinion that matters most, and that is the Brown family's opinion. And for whatever reason, they all think he's doing a great job. Moron. He's a moron. Do you, and maybe I'm the moron. Help me out, Bengals fans. Do you believe that do you believe him when he says that they went all in last year? Do you count the contracts for Jamar Chase and T. Higgins? Do you count those as all in moves? Now, and again, here's how he can get out of jail free with this moronic explanation. Every move is not always made for the upcoming season. Here's how he can maybe spin this. Okay? He could spin it by saying, hey, getting the deals done for Jamar and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins last offseason, those were moves that, yes, definitely impacted us in 2025, but those are moves that are being done for many years to come. He's going to tell you that we're going all in for years to come because of those moves. But the reason no one perceives those as all-in moves for years to come is because in the recent years, what have you done for me lately? Those guys that you consider going all in for have been on the roster the last 3 years that you've missed the playoffs. Do not tell me you've gone all in. You had to pay Joe Burrow. You weren't going to be the franchise that let Joe Burrow go over an expensive contract. You had to. Jamar Chase, I'm not going to give you credit for that. Sure, you did pay him, but you took something that should have been a good thing and still made yourself look bad because you drug your feet and ended up having to spend about $20 million more a year, or not a year, but you had to spend $20 million more on him because instead of taking care of him early, because I dragged Jamar Chase last year for being a distraction and then come to find out, egg on my face, the buffoon that is, the moron that is Duke Tobin, approached him and said, we want to get a deal done. Then they didn't get a deal done. They shortchanged him. They were coming in even below what the market for wide receivers was at the free agency period of the year before. And then it led to a distraction of them missing the playoffs for the second straight year at the time. You could have had him for about 30, 35 mil in that range. You ended up having to spend 40 over a 4-year deal. You spent $20 million more than you had to. That $20 million spread out over that 4 years could have gone in a lot of different directions. And for a team that doesn't like to spend money or is incapable of it or whatever the excuse is, that's a big deal. T. Higgins, you didn't sign him in good faith. You signed him because Jamar Chase said, I'm not signing until he signs. Basically, you let Jamar Chase play the GM. Jamar Chase, by the way, he wants to play with Joe Burrow. He wants $40 million a year. If there was an actual adult in that GM room, in that front office room, they would have called his bluff. We love T. Higgins. We want him to be a part of the Bengals moving forward, but we cannot afford to put $70 million into 2 wide receivers when we have all these holes on defense. But you caved. You let Jamar Chase dictate the deal, and I don't blame Jamar Chase. I'm not mad at Jamar Chase for it. Good for him. He positioned, you are what you negotiate, and he negotiated it. He threatened to not sign his deal unless they got a deal done for T. That's why T's in Cincinnati. And if the Bengals, who I respect, and you know me on this, I've said for years, had the Bengals moved in the direction of, we love having Jamar and T, but fiscally it doesn't make sense. We have to take T, the 30 to 35 mil that we're paying T. We got to use that and put that in other deficient areas of this roster. Because Joe Burrow is an MVP level quarterback that you're paying $55 million a year to. He should be able to still move the football with a $40 million a year wide receiver. And that's the responsibility of being a $55 million a year quarterback. And I don't think he's incapable of doing it. And I don't think you are either. So why are we doing this whole thing of he needed T. Higgins? He wanted T. Higgins. Because, by the way, keep in mind, we all want to work with our friends. But sometimes our friends, they're a good fit to work with for us, but they may not be a good fit for what the company's trying to do on the back end. And tough choices have to be made. But in the delusional bad business world of the Brown family, here we are. I'm so fired up. I can't believe it. I thought I was over the more I'm talking. I was like, if I'm the Bengals, I don't let them talk at this combine. They let them talk at the combine. I would have just let Zach Taylor do all the talking. Zach Taylor doesn't always say the right thing, but he doesn't leave you feeling angry like Duke Tobin does, or at least me. Duke Tobin is confidently bad at his job. Those are the worst people. There are people who are bad at their job, and you're like, man, do you like, you're bad at your job, right? Like, they know it, so they hide it. They try to hide from you. They try to hide from others. This guy, he thinks he's good at his job. That's the problem. That's Duke Tobin. Duke Tobin actually thinks he is good at his job, and that is the problem. That's a problem for the Cincinnati Bengals. That's a problem for Joe Burrow, and that's a problem for you as Bengals fans. So, and again, if you're just joining us, I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show here, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. The fascinating thing about all of this. So, Joe Burrow has been very outspoken in recent years. In my opinion, the reason that the Bengals caved to get those deals done is because they let Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase dictate things. And by the way, Joe Burrow is not wrong for wanting the Bengals front office to get a deal done with Jamar Chase. Duh. I mean, he saw how ridiculous it was. I mean, he saw the impact of the distraction that was created by not getting a deal done with Jamar Chase when they should have done it the first time. But everyone keeps saying, oh man, Joe Burrow, he's going to get the front office to do things that the fans want the front office to do. And I'm not sure if that's the case. So I see people clipping, and Paul Dehner Jr., love Paul Dehner Jr. I think he does a great job. But there's a clip of his podcast that I don't have with me, but I caught it earlier today, where he was saying, Joe Burrow has let it be known. He's let it be known about certain things. I don't know if you guys could hear the horn going off in the parking lot. I don't know who of my coworkers keeps sitting on their keys, but my gosh, would someone turn off their alarm? That's all I ask while I'm trying to do a show. Anyways, now that's all I could think about. But no, I heard a clip from Paul Dehner Jr. earlier that was talking about, Joe Burrow's let it be known that the Bengals are going to change their ways because of Joe Burrow. Guys, we've been saying this for years. The Bengals are in this position with Joe Burrow. And I've said it for many, many years. If Joe Burrow can't get this front office to do things differently, nobody ever will. I have a hard time believing that in my lifetime, a more talented quarterback than Joe Burrow is going to come swooping into Cincinnati. That's how talented Joe Burrow is. And if a talent like that cannot get this front office to do things differently, I don't really know what to tell you. I mean, it doesn't sound like there you go. They got the alarm turned off finally. But maybe Joe Burrow pressured them into turning the alarm off. Who knows? Sorry, my ADD, very bad today. But yeah, like if Joe Burrow can't get this front office to change how they do things, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. We talk about it with the Reds all the time. You have a Terry Francona manager. You have an Ellie De La Cruz. You have a top 5 pitching staff, rotation and bullpen, in my opinion. Top 10 pitching staff, top 5 rotation, top 10 bullpen. Like, when's the next time you're going to have all of those elements rolling at the same time? A generational talent, a Hall of Fame manager, top 10 pitching staff, top 5 rotation. Now's the time to maybe be more aggressive than what you would on a normal offseason. And I think that the Reds kind of did that, whether you want to give them credit or not. I'm waiting for the Bengals to show that urgency. I think the Reds kind of showed a little urgency. They didn't show urgency to the levels of which you would have likened them to. But I think that they showed urgency based on what limitations that they have. Some of those limitations they've laid those out themselves. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, based on what limitations they have, they went above and beyond what they say they're capable of, what they were willing to. Like the Bengals, they could always do more as well. They choose not to. When's the last time the Bengals did something, okay, that was aggressive? Paying Joe Burrow. You had to pay Joe Burrow. That's not aggressive, right? Oh, well, they paid Jamar Chase. Again, something that should have been a respectable move, but they had to pay Jamar Chase. You weren't going to let Jamar Chase go. Well, what about keeping T. Higgins? What you think is aggressive, I think is stupid. I think it's a stupid move. Because had the defense been average, had they drafted well and developed well, and then you paid T that, all for it. That's an aggressive, smart move. What made it a dumb move is, we have a historically bad defense that we're not going to put a dime into free agent-wise. And we're just going to hope that we, all of a sudden, after 2 years of not hitting in the draft, that we're all of a sudden magically going to hit in the draft. Again, all stupid moves. Bengals fans, help me out. 937-518-1410. I want to know. What was the last aggressive move the Bengals made? Because I think some of the bigger moves they've made have been pretty dumb moves. Like they're about to move on, possibly. We're going to talk about this more in a bit, from Trey Hendrickson. That's not moving on from Trey Hendrickson. That's not an aggressive move. Tagging him last year, not an aggressive move. You can't finally make a business decision on something after murking up the waters. That's why I don't respect the T. Higgins deal. You let it get ugly. You let the Jamar Chase thing get ugly. The biggest moves that they've made in recent years that I would deem aggressive but stupid, I mean, you move on from Jesse Bates. That's an aggressive move if you have a follow-up plan. They didn't. Stupid. Lou Anarumo, who still is thrown out as possibility for potential head coaching vacancies, the last couple of cycles, you just let him go. And then he goes on and turns the Colts defense around, one of the best defenses in the NFL. Like, to go get a defensive coordinator out of college who was a linebackers coach the last time he was in the NFL, the Bengals, you're not good enough to do that. Those aren't aggressive decisions. Those are dumb ones. Al Golden, dumb decision. Letting Jesse Bates go, dumb decision. Letting Lou Anarumo go, dumb decision. You fail on all your free agent, reaches. I mean, again, the Risner thing, by the way, that doesn't sound very promising. He has to do what's best for him, and we have to do what's right for us. What do you mean you have to do what's right for you? You got to do what's right for Joe Burrow, because what's right for Joe Burrow is what's best for you. And I don't mean, Joe Burrow wants more offensive talent. Joe Burrow needs an offensive line. I mean, who knows? I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. Let me know in the chat. What was the last, what would you deem to be an aggressive move by the Bengals in the Joe Burrow era? What was the last aggressive move they made? I don't think they've made any aggressive moves since Joe Burrow has been here. Actually, one. I'm sorry. I'll give you one. The move I really liked, even though he's proven to be a little overrated, is Orlando Brown Jr. That was he was the number one offensive lineman free agent a few years ago, and the Bengals got him. That was aggressive. I actually like that move. I'll give him that one. That was a very good move years ago. Orlando Brown Jr., though, has not been as elite as what you would think he would be. Very, very good. You don't have a lot of options. Very good. But that was an aggressive move, and I applaud that move because that was the number one offensive lineman that was available in free agency, and the Bengals got him. But outside of that, Noah Fant, that didn't really do anything for me. Gesicki's been solid, but those are like mid-tier free agent additions. Those, I'm not going to give you flowers for that. Like Orlando Brown Jr. was the number one. The Bengals, what was the last aggressive move they've made? I say Orlando Brown Jr. It's just not enough. So they've made no aggressive moves since the Joe Burrow era started. What makes you think that this offseason is going to be different? And what did you hear in the Duke Tobin presser yesterday that makes you feel like, oh, man, the most important offseason in Bengals history coming up? There is nothing out there to show that anything is going to be different this offseason. They are going to draft guys, they're going to reach on guys, and they're going to hope that guys develop. Oh, they have money to spend. You've said that for years. They still haven't gone after the best of the best outside of Orlando Brown Jr. I have no faith that this team is going to do anything different this offseason. Let me know in the chat. Do you believe this offseason will be any different based on what you heard yesterday from our guy, Duke Tobin? We'll be right back. All right, and we are back. It's the Justin Kinner Show, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. Reds in action right now, spring training action. So we're a few games into spring training. 3 games into spring training right now. And I don't know where you guys are at with how much stock you put into spring training stats and numbers. I'm so in between. It's like if a guy plays poorly, I try not to put too much into it. If a guy plays well, I try not to put too much into it, but I feel like you got to put something into something at some point when it comes to this Reds team, because there's a lot of expectations, a lot of hope, optimism, especially after going and getting a Eugenio Suarez, which I again, to this day, I still think it's a bigger deal than what I think it's even being made. I think it was made out to be a big deal. I think it's actually a bigger deal than what even, some of the most diehard fans are making it out to be. Guys, Eugenio Suarez, a 50 home run hitter last season, 49 home runs last season, hit 118 RBIs. He drove in 118 runs, whatever. I know he only hit 228, but again, those 49 home runs. Imagine what that would have done for last year's team. Imagine what that's going to do for this year's team. And spring training already, Eugenio Suarez has, again, 9 at-bats. He's 2 for 9. He's hitting 222. But, he did hit a home run yesterday. Already, off to a good start power number-wise. I'll take it. He's 2 for 9. Scored a run, hit a home run, drove in a run. I'll take it at this point. You look at, some of these guys, Will Benson, also with the home run, a lot of expectations for him as far as that's concerned. Just spilled my coffee. Get it together, Kenner. Act like you've done this before. Matt McClain's someone I'm keeping an eye on. Here's where I am going to take the positive out of spring training. Matt McClain already with 6 at-bats. He's 3 for 6 during spring. He's scored a run. He's already has an extra base hit. He's drove in 2 RBIs, 4 total bases. He's drawn a walk. He's hitting 500 a couple games into spring. I'll take that as well. I'm going to be very positive. How about Elly De La Cruz? Elly De La Cruz as well. He's had 6 at-bats. He's 3 for 6 at the plate. He's scored a run. He already has multiple extra base hits. He already hit a home run. He has 3 RBIs, 8 total bases. Struck out twice already. Here's the concern. So Eugenio Suarez struck out 4 times as well. That's going to be something interesting to follow. The strikeout numbers. I get it. Everyone's concerned about the strikeout numbers. But for the Reds to be good in 2026, it is going to come down to the names of Eugenio Suarez, Matt McClain, and Elly De La Cruz. Those three, 2 of every 3 games have to be the best hitters on the field. 2 of every 3 games, and maybe I could be generous and say 2 of every 4 games, those 3 have to be the team's best hitters every single night almost. But Suarez, again, already 2 hits in spring, a couple games in, has already hit a home run. Matt McClain, I'm excited about the bounce back for him. Again, it's only spring. It's only the first week of spring training, but he's hitting 500 already. He's 3 of 6 at the plate. 3 hits, 2 RBIs, 4 total bases, an extra base hit on top of that. And then you have Ellie. Ellie De La Cruz, 3 of 6 already at the plate as well. I mean, Matt McClain and Ellie De La Cruz, both 3 for 6 at the plate, both getting extra base hits, both driving in runs, both knocking the ball to the ballpark. When Ellie De La Cruz, Matt McClain, and Eugenio Suarez are contributing, are producing with that pitching staff, this is going to be a tough team to stop. I think that this team is good enough to win the division. Should they be the favorites to win the division? I'm not willing to go that far. But if Matt McClain, and I'm putting a lot of stock, probably way too much stock, into a couple of spring training games. But guys, keep in mind, Matt McClain was bad last year. In the back half of the season, I was really starting to look at Terry Francona saying, I know you know more, you'll forget more baseball than I'll ever know. But how are you looking at Matt McClain right now and not sending him down? How are you not optioning him to Louisville? I never understood that. But that's how much confidence they have in Matt McClain, that even when they're watching him play at his worst, they know there's something in there. And I think we're seeing that already. I love to see it. I want to see this stuff because, do I think that these numbers, the fact that he's 3 for 6, is that automatically going to translate to opening day and the opening week and the opening month of the season? I don't know about numbers to numbers, but good numbers in spring gets him to forget about everything that happened in 2025. If Matt McClain had a poor spring, I still wouldn't put a lot of stock into it, but you would have to start to question the psyche of Matt McClain because you're sitting there saying, okay, he had a horrific 2025 season and has had no success during spring training, and now he's supposed to be confident and rip the leather off the ball come opening day and forward. To me, for a team like this that was as poor of a hitting team as they were last year, I don't care the level of competition of the pitching. As long as they're seeing the ball, putting the ball in play, knocking the ball to the ballpark, driving in runs, and confidence, that's all I care about at this point. And by the way, I talked about Suarez, I talked about McClain, I talked about Ellie, TJ Friedel with 3 RBIs already as well. Matt McClain he has the most hits so far through spring, him and Ellie. TJ Friedel has the most RBIs. Suarez with the home run. Now, this is interesting. Ellie De La Cruz and Suarez are the only 2 Reds to hit a home run so far. We're only 3 games in. And we'll be keeping you updated on the current spring training game that's going on now. But yeah, let me know in the chat, 937-518-1410. We're live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page. You can also text into the show as well, 937-518-1410. You can text your thoughts on all of this now by texting into the show. Go take care of that. All right. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show. We opened up talking college basketball. Dayton with a huge win last night. They got a top 25 win last night over St. Louis. And, as I stated a little bit ago, it's one of those things where, Kinner, what do you have to say now about that win? I'm like, if you think that all of a sudden I'm going to say I was wrong about Dayton, you're missing the point. I think Anthony Grant was wrong in the postgame when he was saying, hey, look, it's, when you win, some of your problems go away. I don't think the win over St. Louis made any of your problems go away. This is a program that has at-large expectations. And last night, all you did was prove all the doubters correct. People know the Dayton Flyers are good. People also know Anthony Grant teams underperform. Anthony Grant, good recruiter. All right. Good coach. Wins a lot of games. But there has to be another coach. There's going to be coaches out there that could do all those same things and win the big ones. Anthony Grant has never proven to be able to do that at Dayton. Dayton has they've had the opportunities, quad 1, quad 2 opportunities. Hell, the quad 1s and 2s have presented themselves even in A10 play. Still haven't been able to capitalize on those opportunities. They've won 4 straight. They've won 5 of their last 6. They have 3 games remaining. They'll be the favorites against George Washington and Richmond. Very fascinated by that last game of the regular season against VCU. No at-large talk. But if, they're going to get that double bye unless the wheels fall off over the last 3, and I don't anticipate that. Getting that double bye is a big deal. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. All right, but getting that double bye is big time because obviously, then you only have to win 3 games to get to the NCAA tournament, and you've beaten St. Louis, you've beaten George Mason, and you haven't beat VCU yet, but you've only played them once. They punched you in the mouth, and you have a chance to return the favor on your home floor. But last night's win was frustrating to me just because it's like, okay, what did we learn about Dayton? Nothing. Everyone's like, oh, man, there's a lot. We learned a lot about Dayton last night. Respectfully, I disagree with you. Because learning that Dayton is good, I don't think we've ever had to learn that. I think we all know that. The reason that fans have the expectation for them to be an at-large team coming into the season is because we all know they're good. We know they're good when they beat up on bigger schools, when they beat up on the, when they go and beat up on the Marquettes, right? They go beat up Marquette, right? They beat up on Georgetown. They absolutely pummeled Florida State. Not all of those are great teams. Power 4 schools, bigger schools, say what you want. They get the job done. They lost to BYU. The BYU game was actually one of the most impressive games from Dayton all season because they looked like a team that belonged on the same floor as a top 10 team in the country. They did belong on the same floor. They were evenly matched with them, or fairly so. Dayton, like when I saw that game, I'm like, oh, Dayton's good enough to win this A10. And mathematically still in the hunt, but that's never been the question. No one has ever doubted that this team is talented enough to do it. It's just we all know we've seen this movie before. Anthony Grant films. You could change the actors and the actresses every single season, but all of his movies end the same. You know what I mean? Like there's certain films that, like, I think there's like a Scream 25 coming out. And people are going to go watch Scream 25 because it's a great franchise. Some people hate it, but there's enough of a following of it that garners them to keep making it. But everyone goes to a Scream movie to be entertained, and man, I wonder how this is going to end. Man, is Sydney going to die? Sydney never dies. You watch the Halloween films; those end the same every time. That's exactly what this is. Anthony Grant is the Scream franchise. Anthony Grant is the Halloween franchise. You tune in every year, you watch it, you look forward to it, you're entertained by it, but you're always disappointed by the ending because it's the same ending every time. Anthony Grant basketball is the equivalent to the Scream series, to the Halloween series. You know how those films are going to end. Every year, the actors and actresses are different. Sometimes the producers are different, but you know how it ends. That film will end every time. The same every time. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. 1410 ESPN Radio, Dayton's radio home for Wright State Raiders basketball. We're going to have Wright State basketball for you coming up later on tonight, 7 o'clock. 6:45 pregame coverage will begin. Wright State on the road. We're heading to Purdue, Fort Wayne. We're heading to Fort Wayne coming up here in a bit. Wright State, a 2.5-point favorite. I'm disappointed as of now in that loss that they just had against Robert Morris. Wright State had a chance to win the regular season outright with the win over Robert Morris in their home finale this past weekend. And they just Robert Morris looked like the better team. And they very well might be. But somehow Wright State has a 2-game lead on the rest of the league right now. We talked about this with Paul Frischner yesterday. I think the one thing that we do forget about Wright State, one of their best players is a true freshman point guard. One of their best players is a true freshman forward/center. And, and some of their other best players are second-year guys. And when we forget how young this roster is. I don't care about inexperienced rosters. I care about, sometimes the age thing plays a role. You're going up against older rosters. Robert Morris, an older roster. All these rosters are not making excuses, but we're starting to see them the water is finding its level. The older teams in that conference are starting to kind of move forward a bit. Wright State's not moving back, but they're not sustaining their run that they were on. I mean, they were punching teams in the mouth early on in conference play. But you lose to Cleveland State. You have a couple bad losses. And Robert Morris is a good team. But if you truly are the number one seed, the number one team in the Horizon League, you got to beat Robert Morris. And they failed to do so twice. And now for Wright State to win the conference outright, they have to at least win one of their final 2 games of the regular season. Both of those are on the road, and both of those are against tough teams, Purdue, Fort Wayne, and Northern Kentucky. Northern Kentucky is their rival. Fort Wayne is, it's always been an entertaining series between both schools back and forth. Wright State has to win tonight. You can't take a 2-game losing streak into your rivalry matchup with Northern Kentucky on Saturday in a must-win to win the regular season title. I was joking the other day with someone. I said, as crazy as this sounds, you would have almost rather be the second or third team in the conference with the goal of finishing in the top 4 and finishing with just on a hot streak. I think right now this looks like a team that's trying to win the league. It looks like a team that's trying to close out the league is what I'm trying to say. That sounds dumb. Oh, they're trying to win the league. Everyone's trying to win the league. But this looks like a team that is more focused on trying to close it out than just playing their game. They play tight. They go on too many long stretches offensively where they go cold. That has to be figured out, and it has to start tonight against Fort Wayne. They're a 2.5-point favorite. I don't know what to expect. I know when they come out and they click offensively with that defense, they're tough as hell to beat. And Wright State's actually been better on the road than at home. Coach Sargent has talked about it. Dan Beret, one of the assistant coaches, because of the senior day festivities going on following the game against Robert Morris, he joined Jim Brown and Chris in the post game. He just said it is strange, the dynamic of being a better road team than a home team. He says it has a lot to do with, of course, more of a business-like attitude when you're on the road. It's kind of you have a smaller travel, small travel party, about 20 people on the bus, and it's you against everyone else when you hit the road. You're on that bus, you're mentally thinking about the game. You're at the hotel, you're mentally thinking about the game. You're not out with friends, there's no distractions. You go to shoot around, you're watching film, you eat, all that with the team. It's a business trip. But you're home, everyone's out doing their own thing. Everyone has the time to meet. You got your friends that are outside the team. There's family, there's just some distractions. Not an excuse, but it is a weird dynamic that's kind of impacting this team. And maybe, they've played some of their best, most impressive games of the season have all come on the road. And we'll see if that happens coming up later on tonight. Wright State and Fort Wayne. If Wright State wins tonight, they win the conference outright. And it would be the first championship for Clint Sargent as a head coach in some form. Regular season, conference tournament, whatever. But getting the regular season taken care of is very important. Getting that 1 seed as far as that goes. All right. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show. Right now, you have Red Spring training action going on. We're hoping to be able to switch it over to spring training coming up here in a bit. We got the game on yesterday. We had technical issues over the weekend. So as long as we have no technical issues, we'll be able to get this game on for you nonetheless. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio.